2 weeks is absolutely bang on.
Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that they gave him 2 weeks.
I'm pretty gutted for Dylan Edwards.
Real Madrid are the champions of Europe again.
Real Madrid are just running rings around everyone and just making them all look silly. G'day everyone, welcome back to Sports Ranting. We're going to jump into it with some breaking news, Jimmy, about a certain superstar West Coast Eagle.
I think the only superstar West Coast Eagle right now. But yeah, Harley Reid offered a 2-week suspension for the sling tackle on Darcy Wilson yesterday. And I just think if the way that it's been going and the way that it sort of looks, then yeah, 2 weeks is absolutely bang on. And the AFL have pretty much got that right. Obviously a lot of talk since the tackle that 1 week is probably where it's at. But I think the majority of the talk since the incident and the tackle and now since the ruling has been around the Rising Star Award, and obviously now ineligible for that with the suspension unless miraculously the Eagles can get it overturned. But Harley's just cost himself the Rising Star Award, unfortunately.
Do you think he'd care?
Nah, absolutely not. Yeah, and it's not going to affect his pocket or anything like that. I think it's maybe 20 grand that you get for winning it, but this kid's going to earn millions upon millions of dollars. So at the end of the day, he probably couldn't care less. He's probably a bit disappointed that he's let his teammates down, but the actual Rising Star wouldn't care. He
might care a little bit for this year. It's only for this year. The best players, when they're rookies, they want to win Rookie of the Year. You want to win Rising Star. You might just go, oh, and you see someone else get up there and win it when you know you were the best player all year. But yeah, this bloke's on track for far bigger honours than Rising Star. It's going to mean absolutely nothing in the long term.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have the asterisks at the end of his career and go, oh, well, he didn't win the Rising Star because he was ineligible, but is he one of the greatest of all time? The way that everyone keeps talking about him,
My take at first was it wasn't that bad. I think we've seen some worse ones. It wasn't pin the two arms, get low, and drive the guy's head into the ground, in my opinion. It was kind of funny how he had a bunch of his jumper in his hand on the back, and then he kind of drove him with the other hand. I know it's bad. He goes on his back, he knocks his head. I always think a little bit, we've talked about this before, that the outcome of the tackle needs to be taken into account. And look, this bloke could be in concussion protocol this week and not playing, and then, that's open and shut. But he played out the game. I didn't think the impact was as bad as some we've seen even earlier this season. Even the high contact, I think, splitting hairs a bit, but could potentially have been medium contact. I just don't think it was as bad as some of these ones that we've seen. I also reckon he was pretty pissed off at his first real hard tag and not being able to touch the ball. I think that might have had something to do with it as well. But it's clearly a suspension. But my initial take was, it's not that bad. But in today's AFL, you're going to have a week or two.
The tag was definitely the thing that did it to him. He lit Optus Stadium up with 17 touches in the first half and could barely get near it in the second half. And yeah, you saw that tackle, and then there was another incident later on, which was probably a very questionable free kick that he gave away in a 50. But yeah, the hard tag obviously rattled him and got under his skin. But I upon first seeing it, obviously watching it live, knew he was in trouble as soon as it happened. It's as much as they do bring the outcome into it, as soon as he elected to grab a hold of him, rip him over his shoulder and sling him backwards to the ground. I get the whole when you pin the arms and you don't give the player an option to defend himself. This, for me, is in the same category because he slung him backwards and Darcy Wilson's going back, falling back, flailing back, has no idea where he's about to hit or anything like that. So
no way to protect himself as he's going backwards.
Yeah. Absolutely no chance to protect his own head, and his head did hit the turf pretty hard. So they've sort of looked at that one and just gone, well, on all of that, the outcome doesn't matter for this one because it could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, obviously not, but it could have been pretty bad, and Wilson could have just been sitting out the rest of the game.
Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that they gave him 2 weeks because I almost felt like they were going to give him a golden boy pass, and he's the next big thing kind of thing in the game. So I'm almost surprised they didn't chuck him a $3,000 fine. Well, his arms are free, and any excuse to not give him a fine.
And that's the thing. I thought it was going that way because this only came out at 6:30 sort of thing, like on a Sunday night. The MRO normally hands down their findings just after lunch, like early afternoon. The longer that we waited for the MRO findings to come out, the more I felt the AFL are finding a way here to let him off, just to allow this golden child the clear path to the rising star.
There was a lot of talk that they were going to, manipulate it a bit and find a way and maybe downgrade some of the actual charge itself to allow him to get through. You and I were working, Jimmy, and the charge sheet came out, and Harley's name was actually on it 3 times, and 2 of them he's been fined for unnecessary contact with an umpire. And the first one that I read, I went, "Oh shit, he's just got a fine." Oh no, hang on, that's not the right one. Keep working my way down. But the one earlier in the year, which was Harrison Jones in the North St Kilda game, was it? On Zach Fisher, I think it is. He's got his arms pinned, so he's got nowhere to go. He's loaded the ground as well, and it was more of that driving action, and he got a week. So for Harley to actually get double that surprised me a bit. I don't mind, suspensions coming into these awards. Like, we know that the Brownlow Medal has traditionally been the best and fairest. Even the Rising Star sort of comes into that fairest side of it as well. So I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction and say we need to change the rules. We don't need to have a Harley Reid clause so that he can still win it this year. I don't mind the fact that a suspension is part of, you got to have sort of a clean record over the year to win these awards. That's just my take on those.
So, I don't know. I'm always on the fence with this type of stuff because, I kind of think, there should be a penalty for being suspended. The penalty is also being suspended, that you can't make any points up that week. But say if you got penalised 3 points for every time you were out, if you were that dominant that you got suspended for 2 weeks and you lost 6 points and you were still the best player, shouldn't it go to the best player?
That's exactly what's going to happen with Harley.
That's what I also
He's going to be ineligible for.
Well, that's
no. I mean, if it was a points-based thing, he still would win it, even if he, even when he's rested. And
rather just go to the best rookie of that year. That's.
But I agree with that sentiment. That why not make it a point system? So he's just been docked 2 weeks, so X amount of points or whatever. And if at the end of the count he's still the best, then so be it. It's how I also feel about the Brownlow Medal.
Yeah, well, that's what
if you cop a few weeks suspension and then at the end of the year you've still got the most votes, how are you not winning the best player award in the AFL? I get when you get a week or something for like that, but I don't know. I just think for this one, again with you, JD, don't want to make that knee-jerk reaction of, but this kid's clearly the rising star. We have to change it now moving forward. If you're going to change it, make it points-based. And then if you do get suspended, you lose points. And at the end of the year, you're still the best, then you're the best. There's no one's arguing that Harley Reid is not the best first-year player in the comp this year.
Well, they're talking about him being the greatest ever first year.
Let's pump the brakes on that.
Some of the hyperbole of the first-year recency bias of
Well, the bloke who was probably second in the Rising Star was Darcy, and he's just been rubbed out for 2 weeks as well. So none of these guys seem to want the award. But we've seen in the Brownlow Medal over the years, I think Adam Goodes did it one year. There's years when a guy is just being fated as, a likely or certainly a finalist for Brownlow Medal kind of thing, and then they do something freaking dumb out on the field, and they had time to kind of think about it. It's part of the thinking. If you want to win a Brownlow Medal, you need to keep your nose clean through the whole season. And some guys have had some brain explosions. Some of them, they've been able to argue it and get it down to a fine and technicality and still be eligible, and then they'll go and do something dumb again. The Rising Star, if you didn't play enough games, you can win it the next year. There's lots of little technicalities with it. But for me, suspension, ineligible, it's fine. And you almost feel sorry for whoever ends up winning it because they're going to be the winner of the Harley Reid Honourable Award.
And that's exactly right, though, because it just lessens the award for me. Because if Harley Reid was going to win it anyway, even with say a 6-point suspension plus not being able to add points over the 2 games that he wasn't going to be around for, he's the best player. I think the opposite kind of thing. But I guess it comes down to that best and fairest kind of thing. I think in the NRL, for example, it's really weird the way they do it because I'm pretty sure if you're suspended for a week, you're still eligible, but if you're suspended a second time, you are then ineligible.
That's right.
Which is a weird way of doing it when, I don't know, it's a penalty, right?
The NRL don't do things weird, do they?
I mean, the AFL are doing it.
Well, a quick little similar story is Donovan Mitchell was pissed off when Ben Simmons won Rookie of the Year in the NBA, and that was because Simmons was in his second year, but he sat out the whole first year with injury. And history will show that Donovan Mitchell is still an absolute gun. And if anything, Ben Simmons will be called a 3-time All-Star. He's not going to be remembered as a Rookie of the Year. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important.
Nah. No one looks back on players of like, oh my god, yeah, they were so good. They won the Rising Star. Like,
unless that's all they did.
Yeah, no one gives a shit.
It's a footnote. It's a footnote.
This is what's coming up this week. I'm just going straight into it, boys. It's Origin week. Oh. We're a few days out. Mertz. You didn't want to take my wine bet last week, so we'll move away from that. But you don't even remember it now. Okay, no. That's fine. That's just the mind games that have started, and Queensland have been doing it all week. What's the latest?
The Queenslanders have been doing it for 4 years. Anyway, this is just the thing that pisses me off more than anything leading into Origin. It's the build-up, and there's nothing to say because they're all in camp and doing nothing, except for when there's an injury and someone like Dylan Edwards misses out on his opportunity. Hey, an actual story. But instead you've got these Maroons legends sitting around trying to come up with a way to make them the underdogs. We're, 18 years, in the last 18 seasons, Queensland have won 14 times. I'm sorry, boys, you lost the chance to be underdogs. But this week, the dumbest thing I've ever heard in this Origin lead-up, and I mean, there's lots of it.
That's a big statement.
That's a lot.
Oh, no, this literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard was Gordon Tallis on NRL 360 trying to say that because Madge Maguire had coached the referees in 2018 for one season, that he had an advantage after that, having held that role, which is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's got to be a little bit of a concern. We watched Madge last night talk about... What are you looking at?
Keep going, Gordy.
No, but you watched Madge talk about that he met Joey, he was a 13-year-old, and so there's a relationship with him. So you would know the strengths and the weaknesses, wouldn't you, of the coach? If you're a coach coaching the referees, would you know the strengths and the weaknesses of the referees?
Well, hang on. So
I'm just saying.
What are we saying here? Are we saying
if you coach the referees, you think you'd have a good relationship with them?
In 2018.
It doesn't matter, but would you know their strengths and weaknesses?
But what does that matter?
If you coached with players, you would know their strengths.
So he shouldn't be allowed to coach New South Wales?
I'm not saying that. I think it's an advantage, and I think that there's no doubt that a Queenslander is sitting there and go, well, if you coach someone, you know their strengths and weaknesses.
Because then he went and coached the Tigers to absolute mediocrity for 3 years and got sacked. Queensland trying to not take the favouritism tag in this, and I just looked it up before we started, boys. Queensland are at $1.70. New South Wales are at $2.10, which is right. Actually, New South Wales should be further out, but anyway. Queensland have lost Cameron Munster. You could maybe make an argument for they've lost Kalen Ponga as well, but I don't even know if he would have made it because Reece Walsh is the incumbent and the guy that's in there, but it's just the dumbest argument to try and convince anyone that Queensland are not the favourites leading into this series. Gordon, come on.
Yeah, I don't think he was convincing anyone. It was funny during the week when the odds were coming.
They're all of them are winks. Like they're all doing it with a wink, but it's just like it's not funny and it's not original, and it's like anytime New South Wales have any like semblance of success, it's like Origin's over. No one cares about it anymore because Queensland aren't getting their prize, you know?
Yeah, when the odds came out, and it was amazing watching Fatty and Gordon and a few of these guys trying to still come up with a way. And they were like, what do you mean Queensland? There's no way Queensland are favourites. That can't be right. And this whole hyperbole they were coming up with, it was just so ridiculous. You know, the odds are the odds. It's what the punters are thinking. But I got to say, I'm pretty gutted for Dylan Edwards. We had a chat here shortly after the team came out, and I was just ecstatic that he had a chance, and it felt like it was time to turn over the team. We've got a 28-year-old guy. We all know Teddy's been fantastic. Nico Hines was the one coming in under an injury cloud, and then a couple of days in, and Dylan Edwards is out. Must be slightly awkward when Teddy walks into camp. Oh, hey guys, remember me? And I reckon Maguire's got a little bit of work to do to sort of smooth that over. But I mean, we're pretty lucky as New South Welsh when we have a bloke like Teddy ready to come in, and he's been in good form. But personally, I'm gutted for Edwards. I was really looking forward to seeing what he could do in this stage.
He was the one for me that out of the Blues team was the one pick that I loved the most. He was the one that I was like, yep, he deserves that spot. As you said last week, Mertz, probably a year late, but he was the one that I was very much looking forward to watching on Wednesday night. And now it's gone, and like you just go back to. I mean, it's not a backward step, but it's just not as exciting being like, oh, well, Teddy's back in.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't think Teddy lost the position. Like Edwards won it, and I think even Teddy said that. Like Dylan deserved this position, and like he said I was just watching the news before, and he was like, "I'm gutted for him," and 100% he deserved the position. And I think there's a lot of New South Wales fans who are a bit gutted, and probably Queenslanders as well would have liked to see what Dylan Edwards could do on the big stage.
I'll have a beer with you with game one, Jimmy. I reckon I'll Blues game one, but I'm not going the series.
All right, fine. We'll go game one then. I'll take
the underdogs.
Do you know my favourite thing about all of that is like all these Queensland legends coming out saying that, you know, New South Wales should be favourites. My favourite thing about it is what it does to you blokes. You blokes just kick up a stink and what are you fucking idiots talking about? Oh, Queensland are the best team. Shut up.
No,
it doesn't bother me because I know they're not being serious when they say it. It's just an attempt.
It just bothers me. No, look, you know what? It comes from the history of it all. Because, like, leading up to the 1980 Origin, like, they played, like, series, New South Wales versus Queensland, for, like, from back to, like, early 1900s and everything like that. And New South Wales were dominant for a lot of the time. And they set up this thing going like, oh, I don't know if it'll work kind of thing. We'll just actually have, like, most of the Queenslanders that were any good were playing for New South Wales in all of those interstate ones. And, like, I get it. Queensland were like, well, we were the underdogs because we lost for 100 years, basically, in the lead up to Origin. But, like, for fuck's sake, like, it's just ridiculous. and the part that pisses me off is that Queensland can't have it both ways. So if New South Wales do anything, like in the the 90s to 2000s, New South Wales won, 10 of 16 series. And I remember leading into, I think it was the 2000 series, New South Wales won a whitewash and they won the last game 56-16. That was the score. And Queenslanders were like, yeah, Origin's dead now. No one cares. Like, whatever. Queensland won the next series, but then they lost the 3 after that, and it was like, no, Origin's dead now.
Yeah, that's.
Then Queensland won the next 10.
I don't see the issue here.
Yeah.
Well, it happens all the time. The early 90s had that incredible team for the Blues with all the Raiders players, and you know they were so good under Gus. Actually, probably the greatest stint that Gus has had in his whole career. And then it was the same thing. Origin's over, but you know the team that loses says Origin is over. The team that wins says this is fantastic, and then eventually the other team says, "Bring it on! I can't wait till next year." It's never going to be over. It doesn't matter how one-sided it is.
And that's it. But my thing is, even after Queensland won for 10 seasons, I was never like, "Oh, Origin shit now. It's so boring. Like no one does. Like, what's the point?" I was just like, "Come on, they can do it next year. Can they get the right players? Can they do this?"
Yeah,
thing?
it was
like,
frustrating.
It's like, no, it's done.
I got pretty frustrated with it, but didn't matter where I was living in the world. I still watched Origin. Didn't matter what was happening. You know. Here we go, Inglis again and Thurston again. And
all right, JD. So we've had one of the biggest sporting events in the world, the Champions League final overnight, and Real Madrid are the champions of Europe again. What makes them such a great team? Like, what's that? 6 out of the last 11 Champions League titles?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Money helps. They're the only guys that
got money.
No, some of them have got money and some of them have got money. Which is basically Man City and Real Madrid. But you know they were pretty much the only team that Jude Bellingham was ever going to sign for. And this kid is phenomenal and will end up as one of the greats. You know, Liverpool talked for a long time about trying to get him, and Klopp knows him and all this. We would never any chance. Because we couldn't pay the wages, and it's really the weekly wage bill. But the dominance that these guys have, they won the first 5 It used to be called the European Cup, that were ever created back in the 50s. And then they didn't win it again for 40 years, right? And that's fine. That's okay. That's how this is supposed to be. We're supposed to have different teams every year. There's lots and lots of big clubs. It's the Champions League, so it's typically, now there's more teams are allowed in, but, you win your domestic league, you have a chance to go and show you're the best team in Europe. And we've had loads of teams from Germany and England and Spain, from the Dutch league. We've had lots of them win. But this recent dominance, AC Milan have got 7 of them, and they're so proud of that record. Liverpool and Bayern Munich have 6. And these are like fated in the club. This is some of the greatest things we've got. They put the stars on the shirt. Real Madrid are just running rings around everyone and just making them all look silly. More than half of the last 11, as you said, 6 out of 11 that they've won. They had about a 12-year gap in the early 2000s where they didn't win. But to that club, that's unacceptable, So it's a shame. It's made it, I didn't watch this morning. I nearly always watch the Champions League final. I didn't watch this morning. Even though I've got a soft spot for Dortmund, I was pretty sure what the outcome was going to be. So I'm sure it's great for their fans, their team. It's become a little bit too one-sided and almost predictable. Man City won it last year, and we know what spending power they've got. But if you can't have an Ajax or an Arsenal or someone having a shot at least and getting to the semi-finals and winning these tournaments, it sort of takes a bit of the luster off it for me.
So then, what's the fix though? Because obviously the money side of soccer is just throw it at will, basically. But like this team is phenomenal, and obviously Bellingham, Vinny Jr., who was incredible in that game this morning. But I still think from watching it, Dortmund had every shot, if not more, to actually win it. Real Madrid, obviously an unbelievably good team, and took the most of their chances, but Dortmund were right there knocking on the door. So if you're saying that it's becoming too one-sided, how do you fix it? Do you just not allow them in next year?
Ban them. That's it. They're out.
If you win it, you can't go on next year.
No, that was the Man City chat from the other day. They should be banned from all sorts of things for all the cheating that they've been getting up to, and allegedly. No, look, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can spend a shitload of money, like Man City and Real Madrid to an extent. Their team is extraordinarily expensive. They've also got an amazing manager. Or you can moneyball it, a bit like what Klopp did at Liverpool. So over a 9-year period, build a whole squad. He made 3 Champions League finals, lost 2 of them to Real Madrid, shock horror, and won the other one in a year that Madrid didn't make it. You can do that by getting the right pieces in the right positions, building a team, coaching them, bringing them through. We've seen that you can do it. Dortmund's known as a selling club. They have sold. They had Haaland. They had Bellingham. There's a whole list of them that they've sold, but they still manage to produce and have a competitive team. But there's other ways that you can do it, and it's not like, granted, Madrid are not winning it every single year, but the level of dominance they have compared to everybody else, it's pretty extraordinary.
So a bit of a question without warning. They're changing the format of the Champions League next year and bringing a few more teams.
More teams! It's always more teams! More teams! More games!
Yeah, well, exactly. Do you think that's going to do anything to help?
Potentially.
Dominance?
Yeah, potentially. It'll help some of those teams that are on the fridge and don't get a look in to make it. And it's massively lucrative. The teams that make the top 4 in England, the reason they go on about it being so important is predominantly the money, the money that you get from making it. And there's more money every game you win, every round that you go. And that gives you deeper pockets, which means you can buy more players. So expanding the talent pool or the number of teams that way helps a lot of those clubs that will get a taste of it. The elite clubs will say they weren't good enough to make it anyway, so why are they making it now? But that could actually help level the playing field to an extent by giving them more exposure, I guess. But it's like the World Cup. They keep putting more teams, more pools, more games. It's all money. It's all TV. Football fans will keep watching, but you still want to make sure it's the best of the best. All right, boys, love your work. Thanks for listening. That was Sports Ranting.